when I ask you anything, just feel free. I'm going to call this a safe space. And it is a safe space for different reasons. We are all here to learn. Some of us know certain things already, some of us do not. But what we are here to do is to learn about deafness, to learn about deaf people, to understand them more, to understand everything that surrounds them. You are seeing 2 sign languages in action literally right now. We have BSL, British Sign Language, because we have British guests, and we have American Sign Language over here for those people who live here. So you're seeing 2 interpreters, but they're both signing totally different things, right? So even that in itself should tell you a lot. So we are going to talk about culture. There are deaf people in this room who you probably don't even know are deaf, because you can't tell by looking, but we'll get into that right now. So I'll just ask Maria to take the floor.
Good morning. Welcome to CIBC First Caribbean's Warren's Great House. It is such a pleasure to have you all here. My name, as Bonnie said, is Maria Boyce-Taylor. I'm the Associate Director responsible for client and employee engagement.
What I do have to say though is that it's interesting when you see what deaf people like and how deaf people interact with the community, because she very much can hear everything now, but gets very annoyed sometimes with all the noise that she wasn't used to when she was younger. So she will switch her cogs.
Something very important to me as a personal thing around deafness, and that is because my niece, my second niece, was born profoundly deaf. So it was a big shock to our family when this happened, and something that we had no idea how to deal with. Obviously, her parents were, very gobsmacked when this happened, as were my parents and myself as her uncle. So it took a lot of time in the early years for us to, learn how to cope with it and learn how to communicate with her and make sure that she, was brought into the family and was part of the family and was able to participate in everything despite, her deafness. And it was very hard, and a lot of the family learned, how to sign. I did learn how to sign. I have forgotten a lot of it since then, I have to say, because luckily she was able to have a cochlear implant, which really helped.
Not only deafness, and to understand that deaf people will have to share that with you, but not only understand deafness, but I want you to see how you can accommodate deaf people into your environment. Do you see a space for deaf people where you work? Do you see a space for deaf people where you socialize? Do you see, and this is something you don't have to answer aloud, but do you even see deaf people as your equal? And that's a very honest question. Do you see deaf people as your equals? Do you see them equal educationally and socially? And that is if you know who the deaf people are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see 5 deaf people in this room. 6 deaf people in this room currently. I am not sure if you know who they are, but you sure will by the end of the session. So I started, just getting my NIS money from home, and then NIS said that they're not going to give me money because I can talk. And so hold that. So that's another issue, how we classify deafness in Barbados, because you're entitled to certain benefits. Oh, sorry, sorry. You're entitled to certain benefits, but if they hear that you can talk, that means you aren't deaf for them. and they won't give you your money. So if you can speak, and that speaking does not have any really impact on the ability to hear, they're still deaf. But if they realize that you can speak or your voice they can understand a little bit, they say, no, not you. You are not going to get any benefits. A deaf guy from the UK, a deaf man from the UK, he came to Barbados. And I was working at a restaurant, and he was there with his wife on vacation. And he saw that my badge said hearing impaired. Let me stop you again. So at the end, we're going to go through we're less than an hour away to finishing. And hearing impaired, we do not say. We say deaf or hard of hearing. Not deaf, not hearing impaired at all, ever. And I will tell you why. Well, no, I'm not going to tell you why. Let me tell you why we don't say hearing impaired. Still have Scott's camera. So we don't say hearing impaired because, impaired means that it's a conflict with our culture. For example, he's deaf, I am deaf. But hearing impaired, if one of us is able to talk, does that mean we're less deaf? And impairment, the word impairment means like something needs to be fixed. We don't need to be fixed. We are proud of who we are, and deaf is what we are. Now, Sandra's here from England, and you say hearing impaired to her, do you understand how she would feel? I was not born impaired. There's nothing that's impaired about me. We are deaf, and deafness is a symbol of pride, and we're proud of who we are. So impairment does not fit in with our deaf culture. So that's why we say the word deaf. That's why we say the word deaf, and that's it. Regardless of if people say, oh, he can talk, so maybe he's just a little hearing impaired. That's it. Deaf. Deaf, I can't hear, and that is the word. So just say deaf, and that's it. So now you know. So now you know. So now you know.
Everybody? I am profoundly deaf. I'm a third generation of deaf families. So my parents and my grandparents were both deaf. I have been a teacher of the deaf for 30 years. The last 9 years I was the deputy head of a deaf school. If you had a deaf and hearing baby that were born at the same time, they both have the same brain? Or do you think they have a different brain? It needs to have a recognition that ASL, used in Barbados, is recognised as a formal language, and that that's implemented. And we don't mean just recognise, yes, you have a language, fine, off you go. No, it means that it's ratified in law. It needs to be part of legal structures and procedures to know that it's a legal entity. It is a right to access it in that language. Then you need to then talk to the education departments. They need deaf awareness. Well, everybody needs deaf awareness, in my opinion. I've been here for 3 weeks, and I've been looking specifically at deaf education, and I agree with other deaf people here who have said they've left with nothing. They left school without any qualification. That is not fair. It means they can't get a job. It means that they're relying on state intervention by supporting disability payments. But deaf people have brains. They have brains that they can use. They have language. It just needs to be in a visual form. So going back to education, it needs to be established that they're working with an education department, the same as your hearing schools do. Your hearing schools, you work with your education department.
Also, what was discussed before, Scott being able to speak Faye in the red shirt. She's deaf, but she speaks very well. It doesn't mean she's not deaf. All deaf people have their unique life story. Not all deaf people were born deaf. Not all deaf people know sign language, but they're all deaf. And you have to know how to really match each situation.
Babies can learn English even from using sign language. For example, a child can learn elephant, giraffe, which is the largest animal. Suppose they say giraffe, but then you ask, what's the tallest animal? So they can learn the difference how? By seeing the language. Because in English you hear words, but in sign language you see the meaning of the words that you would have heard. So that for elephant, they would have seen a long trunk, but for giraffe they see the neck. So they see the difference between an animal that's big and an animal that is tall. So they can understand, oh, the giraffe is the tallest animal, while the elephant would be the biggest land animal. So that sign language helps to understand even English. Because I want to repeat, in English you hear the words, but in sign language you see the words that you would have heard. Because really, for the deaf, English is like a foreign language. So it helps knowing both languages.
You're done? You're done? Thank you, everybody. If you want to talk to any of us, we are here, and we can have some refreshments in the room right there. Thank you. Everybody, hands up. Scott and Dario at work. And don't stop either. You should put your hands longer than that in primary school. Keep your hands up in the air. You done? You done? Thank you, everybody.